cost. So thank you, Quasi, for making yourself available. But we also want to conduct this meeting because, we really do value and appreciate our client base. And part of that means that we want to continue to offer you all as much value as possible inside and outside of our facility. And one of the things we've been noticing is that, in addition to what we do in guiding you through the exercises in the facility, there's so much wealth of knowledge within our team and so many individuals who are extremely educated in their field who really understand a lot about why we do certain exercises and some of the things that can really help us as individuals to kind of like take that knowledge outside of the gym and apply it in our own lives. So we want to be able to begin to cultivate an environment where we can begin to share that knowledge. And this is part of us attempting to do that. Every month for the next 4 months, we plan to have one webinar a month where we will be welcoming you all to just come and learn about a very important topic within the field of exercise science and exercise physiology. And some of you know that I sent out a survey. Bone health and how to take care of your bodies got some of the largest responses. So that's why we wanted to start here. I wanted to start off by sharing that osteoporosis, believe it or not, is actually called the silent killer. And the reason why, or the silent disease, I'm sorry, not silent killer, but the reason why is because most people don't know they have weak bones until they break one, right? And about 10 million Americans already have osteoporosis, and another 44 million have low bone mass, putting them at risk. So it's just a very interesting idea that, we want to begin to create an environment where we understand, even if we have osteoporosis or like low bone mass, or even if we have great bones, what can we do to make sure that we are taking the best care of our bodies possible, strengthening our bones, and even reversing some of the effects of osteoporosis? So that's what we want to discuss in this meeting. And without further ado, I just want to go ahead and get us started. So Kwesi is going to be fielding some of the popular questions within this arena. And I just want to get us started, just start off by asking Kwesi a very basic question. Can you explain to us what are bones and how do they function within the body?
Okay, thank you very much, Banji, and thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for showing up. So, what are bones? And how do they function within the body? First of all, a bone essentially is a rigid tissue that forms a skeleton. It's made out of collagen, calcium, and just several other minerals that provides the strength and function. As we all know, bones they protect us really on the inside, protecting our organs, our internal organs, and it also allows us to be able to stand and to just have a good posture. Now, with that said, just having bones doesn't allow us to have good posture. We also need kind of the muscles to kind of help us to stand and to help us be able to freely move. Essentially, that relationship is called the musculoskeletal system. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, but bones are essential because it does store calcium. It also does store phosphorus, which is important for a lot of the nerve functions, as well as muscular functions as well. And we may all know that within the bone is the bone marrow, which is inside of blood cell production. So bones are very important. And in order for us to have proper muscular functionality, cell production, we do need to be able to keep our bones healthy. And with that said, as we age, it does become very critical. As kind of Banji mentions that, a lot of us do have things like osteoporosis or, frigid bones. It becomes very important for us to make sure that we're maintaining a healthy bone. Um, and as I mentioned, a lot of us have heard of osteoporosis. And when your bone becomes weak, oftentimes it breaks. As we get older, this becomes more prevalent. As you for a lot of women post menopausal age, we oftentimes see osteoporosis a little bit more commonly and a little bit more fractures in that state. Um, so as we age, again, it is important for us to maintain a very good bone health. And we need to make sure we're doing activities such as exercise to make sure that we are able to give ourselves the ability to have strong bones and have a good bone remodeling essentially system so we can improve our bone density and our bone strength.
Okay. You definitely shared a lot there, and I'm sure that, some of us caught a lot of that. We will have a time for a Q&A at the end. So, just be prepared for that as well. But Kwesi, towards the end of that, you mentioned something that is very interesting. You talked about, I mean, at first you began to talk about how bone function as storehouses, and you mentioned all these different things that happens within the bones, like red blood cell production and collagen and calcium storage and all of these different things, which are very important. And I think, part of that is a nutritional aspect. But one of the things you mentioned that I think more aligns with what we do in the center as exercise physiologists is something called bone remodeling. So do you mean to tell us that it's actually possible that we can remodel our bones like we remodel our houses? Can you explain what you mean by that? Why is bone remodeling important?
Okay. So bone remodeling, if you call it the bone remodeling cycle, essentially it's like a formation and breakdown of bone. And that might sound weird because I always say, my parents growing up told me to drink a lot of milk so I can grow strong bones. I only got to be 5'3", so I don't know what happened there. But so when it comes to bone remodeling formation, there's really two things I want you to be, just take away from this. There's something called osteoblast, and then there's something called osteoclast. So you have to be able to differentiate between the blast and then the class. The osteoblasts are responsible for a lot of the bone formation, and then osteoclasts are responsible for the bone reabsorption.
Uh,
So what does that mean? Well, if you continuously build bone, that is also the good. You end up becoming 8 feet tall. So we want a situation where we're having a good relationship of yeah, we want some the weak bone essentially or bad tissue within the bone to be reabsorbed, and that's where the osteoclast comes in. And then once you do have things like fractures or little injuries, you want the osteoblast to come in and do its work and form new bones. So then we have this balance of, okay, the bad tissue is gone. Now we have good tissue that's in place to maintain a good, strong bone. Um, so essentially, we are, again, kind of going back to osteoporosis. Literally, osteoporosis means porous bones. So how does that relate to bone remodeling? So when you have osteoclasts working overtime and you have osteoblasts going on vacation in the Bermudas, well, we have more absorption happening and not enough formation. Okay. So that relationship or that when you have that situation, unfortunately, is what happens when we become older. There's more absorption happening, so now your bones are becoming more and more and more porous, which essentially leads into the osteopenia. Then you get into the osteoporosis phase, and then not enough of the bone formation by the osteoblast happening. So that's kind of explains the cycle. But that also takes us back to the point that it is because this happens, and we know that as we age, it kind of tips in the direction of osteoclast, where a lot of things are being absorbed. It's important for us to do little things like exercise or just healthy habits, so that we are promoting like stronger bones, just bone density in general, just getting overall strength in our bones. Exercise does promote a lot more of the formation of osteoblasts, which is the bone formation, so
uh,
that as the osteoclasts are reabsorbing those bad tissues or the older tissues, the osteoblasts are coming into, form, so that we are having nice, dense bones.
that makes perfect sense. So basically, there's these two mechanisms in our body that one is responsible for building bones and one is responsible for breaking bones, or
Mhm.
as you put
Right.
it, removing any harmful materials within the bones, which makes the bones fragile. So
Right.
one thing I heard you say that was very helpful, and I think our members listening may really appreciate that, is exercise can actually promote osteoblasts. So that bone remodeling process is governed by this molecule, essentially. I believe osteoblasts are a molecule. I can't remember from my
So, okay.
undergraduate, is a cell. I can't remember from my undergraduate course. Hope my teacher isn't on this webinar, my undergraduate bio teacher. But Yeah, so yeah, no, that's very interesting. Is that exercise can actually promote osteoblast. So essentially, what I'm hearing is that the more we exercise, the more these cells um, are that which um, build bones, are positioned, to help our bones to get stronger. Essentially, that's pretty much what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Right. So as again, as we age, there is a little bit more of the osteoclast that we see. Essentially, that's why the bones become porous. So we do need more of the osteoblasts to kind of, replace that a little bit to have more formation happening. So there's not more reabsorption happening and not enough formation.
I see. So let me ask you this question, and this may seem a little tangential, but can you tell us where at in life does bone density peak, and when should we kind of be more a little bit proactive about our exercise, recognizing that I probably have. I mean, I'm sure nobody here walks around thinking like, "Oh, I need to get more osteoblast within my bones." But I kind of want us to be able to have a mindset of where at in life should we recognize that this is a place that bone density peaks, and this is a good place for not only myself, but me to encourage maybe family members or friends that exercise is going to be more important.
Okay, very good question. So generally, researchers say like right around the age of 30, is when you do see like a peak of the essentially the density peaks. And then from there, it's like a gradual decline. Uh, but that doesn't mean that, it's just like 30, boom, and then you no longer have, you all decide to have porous bones. It's a gradual process.
Right.
And it's important to remember it's a gradual process because that means that there's things that we can do to kind of slow that process down. And that's where, that's why we're having this, kind of conversation to discuss like what are the things that we can do. And, exercise is a good way to do it, whether that means it's low impact, high impact, moderate impact, and then like weight bearing, resistance training. All those things are good things to be able to do so we can promote, again, the slowing of the decline. And then also like there are a lot of healthy habits that we can do to kind of again slow that process. But generally speaking, about right around 30, he says where you peak. But again, you can kind of slow down that progression of the decline.
Ah, I see. Got it. Okay, well that's very hopeful because my 30th birthday was a couple years ago. So I'm glad that there's still hope for people like myself. But no, in all honesty, I think it's very very great that you mentioned that it's not necessarily precipitous. You don't hit 30 and then it's like a tremendous dip. What happens is that it's just a kind of a cue for us to begin to acknowledge that, we want to be able to put more effort into our exercise regimen and things like that. So
Yeah.
good, good. Thank you so much for that. I want to ask you another question. Let's talk about practicality. So, can you tell us what types of exercises are best for building strong bones? Can you mention any exercises in specific?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned like I kind of break down into categories. So we have weight bearing exercises, which really just means that you're working against gravity. So if you go out and you salsa dancing, that is great exercise. If you want to bachata, if you want to dance, if you just want to go out and walk, jog, any of those exercises are also good for building strong bones. That's more like the weight bearing, fighting against gravity type exercises. And then you can go into like what we do better living, more the resistance training. So this is when you're actually fighting against some type of force. So this means we got some bands, we do some rows, cable rows, whether it's single grip or double grip, working the lats. We're also working around boys there. We can do things like lat pull downs, pulling down from the top. Um, Push-ups are a great exercise, whether you do from the ground, on the floor, or ground to floor, same thing. On the bench, on the wall, those are also good. Um, so really a lot of different things that we can do, and there's like a whole list that I can go over in a little bit. But I guess with all those exercises, the key thing I want to kind of make a point is if you go to the gym and you see some guy doing some exercise, and he's like this. I don't know if you can see. He's like doing a whole bunch of exercise very quickly. Um, you gotta have to keep in mind. Well, first of all, that guy might be crazy. We don't know, but there's something called specificity in exercise. So that person might be training for the Olympics. So they might need to work that quickly through that exercise or whatever it is that they're doing. But for the purpose of building strong bones, I always like to say, let's work slowly. No need to go through the exercise fast. Let's take our time. Nothing in life happens that quickly. Building strong bones just takes time as well. So when you're doing exercises, almost going through like a 3 to 4 count, whether it's in the eccentric or the concentric. So if you're doing like a bicep curl, we're going down nice and slow, and then you're coming up nice and slow. So, whether it's weight bearing exercise or resistance training, just kind of keep that concept in mind is that, hey, I don't want to rush through this exercise. I want to go nice and slow. So, one, again, going back to the musculoskeletal connection, like we're building the muscle and this attaches to the tendon into the bone that allows us to be able to move. In order for us to get that muscle stronger so that our bones are also stronger, we have to kind of go through it slow so we have that time to build and then come back up nice and slow. So that time attention is a good way to essentially build not only the strong muscles but also the strong bones. So essentially, I'm saying the speed in which you exercise can create can have a good impact on building strong bones, along with all the other different exercises. Like I said, I'm going to mention in a little bit.
Okay, that's very helpful. So you basically said that specificity, excuse me, I always have a trouble pronouncing that word, is very key. And don't do what that guy at the gym is doing, the very quick bicep curls because you want to go slow. You want to make sure that you're yeah, going at a pace that's allowing the bones to kind of like rebuild itself and remodel itself, is what I'm
Mhm.
understanding you saying. Okay.
Right.
One of the things that we are very key at doing at our center, and for those of you online who train with us, you know this, is that we're very key about a couple things. One is that we always prioritize safety, and we always want to make sure that we're exercising with a weight that is appropriate to the client. But one of the things that we do not do a lot of in our center because of that is high intensity interval training. So we don't necessarily bring out the jump ropes or battle ropes or some of those things in that sense. Can you tell us a little bit about if there is a type of high intensity training that does help bone remodeling? Can you tell us about what is the difference between high impact exercises and low impact exercises for bone health? Can you speak a little bit about those subjects a little?
Yeah. So, really high impact as it sounds is something that's high impact. So, again, example I can give is like doing squat jumps, or you're loading your back and then you're trying to do a whole bunch of lunges on the gym that we call the Jones room. So those tend to be high impact. There's a lot of weight, and you're moving through the exercise pretty fast. And even when you jump up and land, there's a lot of load that is going on to your spine. Do those build bone density? Yes, it does. But you kind of have to be careful how you're doing it. And when you're doing it. You always want to make sure that you're safe. Now, if you are thinking, okay, well, I may have osteopenia or even osteoporosis, those type of exercise might not be the best for you. You want to stay more towards like the moderate type exercise or even like the low impact exercises. All these are going to have benefits in building strong bones, but in this process, you also don't want to hurt yourself, right? So instead of doing things like a squat jump, I say, let's do line stepper. So you're stepping across the line, like so. So you're not per se jumping up and down, but you're kind of step here, step here, step here. There's still load being put on the bones without necessarily like putting all that force on one, and then jumping up and down. So that might be like a more of a low impact slash a moderate impact exercise that you can do. Also, we can do things like, stationary lunge. We're doing lunges in that one position where we're going up and down, up and down, up and down, but we're not jumping with it. So again, we're loading, we're building strong bones without necessarily saying, okay, let's jump up, land, and then do and go into a lunge. There's a lot of exercises like that you can do it in a high impact fashion, but a lot of times it's better to do it in the moderate to low impact, just so that we don't hurt ourselves in the process.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. That's very helpful. That kind of makes me think, is there anything, and maybe you said this a little bit, but I want you to elaborate on it. Is there anything such as too much exercise or exercise that can be harmful to bone health?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, excessive exercise, you never want to do too much of anything. So excessive exercise can be kind of harmful, especially when you don't have the proper nutrition. And again, kind of going back to the old porous bones things, like if you exercise excessively, you don't have the proper nutrition, you don't have the proper rest, it can lead to the things that we don't want, like the stress fractures or the even loss of bone mass. So we kind of want to be careful as far as like how often we work out. We don't want to do too much. Kind of going back to specificity, like yeah, maybe we can break down a week where we're working out 3 days a week, or maybe even 4 days a week of strength training or resistance training, and then maybe having 2 days where we're just strictly focusing on walking or dancing or something like that. So we don't want to excessively do anything. We kind of want to break it down so that we are doing an adequate amount throughout the week, and then maybe switching the mode of exercise that we're doing. But anything in excess is not going to be good, especially in the case you will end up, possibly hurting yourself.
Okay, got it. So let's keep that in mind as we continue to train our clients. I know
Mhm.
sometimes we can be pretty optimistic with pushing our clients to the max, but great that you mentioned that. Let's move on here, and we have time just for maybe one or two more questions, and I want to open up the floor. Can you tell us what are the early signs of osteoporosis and how can it be diagnosed?
Okay. So you kind of mentioned this is one of those silent diseases. You often don't know until something happens, like, oh, I fractured something or I broke something. It's a lot of time asymptomatic until, like I said, something happened. A lot of time it's some type of fracture. But you can also see things such as like you lost height. You noticing that, hey, I'm no longer 5'7", 5'3". I'm now 5'2".
Hmm.
Or you're like, hey, man, I'm really having this back pain. I just don't understand why. So they're just markers that you can kind of start to sense like, oh, I'm hunched over a little bit more. Those are little markers that would tell us that, oh man, I may be experiencing osteoporosis or even osteopenia. I'm not going to say. Usually there's a process, right? So if you ever done like a DEXA scan or bone mass density exam, they'll tell you a number. Usually anywhere between -1 and -2.5 means that you're osteopenia. Anything beyond that, they say you do have osteoporosis. So it is good to like, get regular checkups as well. And then when you do start having those markers, like, I'm a little bit shorter, I'm having these aches and pains, I'm easily fracturing things. Those are the markers for you to say, okay, I need to maybe get this checked out to see, what's going on. But it's really not like one thing that you can say, okay, yeah, I definitely have it. We do know, like I mentioned earlier, at the 30, there is going to be somewhat of a decline. But besides actually maybe injuring yourself or like say one of those things that I mentioned earlier, you probably won't have an exact sign that that is happening.
Okay, okay. And you kind of touched on this again. I just want you to elaborate, just so we're all on the same page. We understand
Mhm.
that a lot of people in North America are coming to us and they already have some level of loss of bone mass or some level of osteoporosis. Very few times do we get people who just
Mhm.
come to us and they're 30 and they say, hey, I want to strengthen my bones. So considering the fact that we're dealing with a population who a lot of times we have already some level of loss of bone mass, what would exercises or habits would you recommend maybe that they can do in and outside of our center for them to just continue to facilitate that bone remodeling process?
Okay. So I'll say probably three good things are good to do, which is, get checkups, whether it's
Okay.
yearly, just make sure you go into the doctor. If you're feeling like, hey, I'm getting a lot of fractures, ask for that DEXA scan to just so they can tell you where you are as far as your bone health. It's also good to eat. I won't talk about nutrition. This is Mark's line, field, but make sure that you are eating things high in calcium, vitamin D rich food as well. That's also good. So just make sure you're getting those nutrients and those within your body. And then the engaging in the daily, or at least 3 to 4 days out of the week, engaging in some type of weight bearing exercises. Um, so, I guess I'll speak a little bit more on this point. Like I mentioned earlier, like doing things like lat pull downs, push ups. A lot of the exercises that we do in our facility are promoting like bone strength. Some of the things could be like lunges, deadlifts, whether that means you're doing both leg. If you don't have lower back issues, we can do single leg deadlifts as a modifier. That's also good as well because you're loading this on that one leg. We can do low impact jumps or the skips, as I mentioned earlier, kind of bouncing from side to side. That's also something that's good to do. A lot of different types of rows, whether that means incline rows, dumbbell rows, you're hitting the lats, working on a lot of those rhomboids, the muscles that move the scapula up and down. You can do things such as military press, Arnold presses, tricep kickbacks, bicep curls. Another one that I like, which we did today, Alan, was that arm hanging. Then we do the Popeyes curls. That's also a good one to kind of build bone strength as well. Also strengthening the bicep itself. Um, and then so those are like individual exercises, but it's also good to do compounding exercises. We could do something like we're going to a lunge followed by a military press, or a lunge going to front raise, lateral raise. Or it could be like going from a side lunge to a deadlift or something like that. So now you're working through multiple planes and you're working multiple different muscles. So you're not only building like just the arm, bone in the arm. Now you're working through like arm. Now you're working through the leg because you're going into a lunge and then you're doing the kickback after that. So there's a lot of exercises that we can do again that we do at Better Living that does promote bone health. And doing compound exercise as well is a good way. It's kind of almost like two birds, one stone kind of thing. So those type of exercises are also very beneficial for you to do. And just kind of recapping, so a lot of the weight bearing exercises, get the proper checkups, and then just have diet that's rich in calcium and then vitamin D.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. Great. I am looking at our time and it's 6:31. And I don't want to take all the time in asking all my questions, but we covered a lot. We talked about starting from what are bones, what are they responsible for, what are their roles, some of the things they do. We talked about bone remodeling. We talked about certain exercises and when bone density peaks and when we should be taking more interest in exercising, etc. At this time, I'm curious if there's anything we did not cover that anyone from the audience is particularly interested in knowing. So I'm just going to open up the floor. If anybody has a question, you can just bring yourself off of mute. And yeah, we want to hear what questions you may have, and we'll do our best to respond. So it looks like Judy, you came off. If you want to go first.
Yeah, can you be more specific about exercises for the hips? I was a runner for a while and then I ended up having to have knee replacement surgery. Um, but I thought that running would help, but I now have osteoporosis in one hip and the beginning of osteoporosis in the other.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if there's anything um, that's more specific to that. I mean, we talked about the arms and all of that, which an upper body, which is
Yeah.
great. And I'm doing that with a lot of that with Jocelyn, so that's good. But I need to know more about the knees and the hips and stuff like that.
Okay. Very good question. Thanks for asking that, Judy. So for the hip, we'll kind of go around the hip. Okay, we're going to start from the side. So a good a muscle. So the muscle that's on the side of our hip, we call that the glute med. There's a lot of muscles there, but we focus on the glute med. There's anterior and posterior version of the front and the back of the glute med. So a very good exercise to hit that muscle would be like sideline abduction, so ABD abductions. So that's where you're laying on your side, lifting the leg up and down. That's a very good exercise to do. Another one exercise is going to hit that muscle. I call this the get out of the car exercise. So you're sitting down, you put like a band around your knee, and then you just take that one leg and step out like you're getting out of the car. So that's also a good exercise. It's going to build up the muscle, the glute med. Um, and kind of going around to glute max, starting from the ground, like lay on your stomach, and with the leg straight, you're lifting the leg up and down. We call that a prone extension. So that's now working the glute max. You can also do that same exercise standing up. So standing, hang on to something just with your leg straight, kicking straight back. Okay. You can then, from that position, curl the leg up. So now you're curling at the knee, or sorry, bending at the knee, and then bringing your like a heel towards your butt. That's also a good one as well. Then that's going to hit more of your hamstrings a little bit more. Um, and then let's see, going back around. So now they have the glute med on this side again. Um, and kind of talk about like hip flexors. It's easy hip flexor exercise. You can lay on the ground. And then kind of like what we do with the sideline abductions where you're lifting the leg from the side. Just lay on your back and lift your leg up and down. That's a good way to get the hip flexors. Another one that this is more of a dynamic exercise. You can do marches. So you can sit down in the chair, grab maybe a couple dumbbells, put them on your knee, and then march. Just go up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay. So that's going to now target more of the hip flexors. You can also do this standing up. You can march standing up. Okay. So bring your knees all the way as high as you can, up and down, up and down. So now you're getting more into that again, the kind of bouncing, 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 but it's not like I'm running, where I'm just putting all that impact. So those are kind of a few exercises that kind of going around the hip. So we got the hip flexors, like leg raises. You can do marches. You can do abductions, whether it's from a standing position or a seated position. You can do that. You can do prone extensions, or standing extensions to hit the glute max from the back. Um, I'll throw this one in there as well. From a seated position, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try my best. If you're sitting down and you hook a band to your leg, let's say the band is coming from this way, hook it to your ankle, and you move if this is my feet, you move your legs like this. So you move your legs in towards your midline without necessarily your knee moving. So your ankle moves towards the midline. So now that's going to work more the external rotators. And then you can do the same thing with the band coming from this side and keep the knee still and move your legs that way. That works more the internal rotator. So all those muscles are at the hip. Okay. So that's kind of way to kind of build all those muscles around the hip. And again, kind of building up the bones in that region as well.
Thank you. I hope that helped others as well.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely
you.
helped me. So
Yeah, the good news is that quite a few of those Jocelyn does with us, not all of them.
Jocelyn does a good job of covering all those. Yes.
guys, yes, I had to get out of the car going to Kroger today, and I was thinking how I need to strengthen my glute, do my get out of the car exercise, But no, this is helpful. By the way, before I proceed, if this is your first time, learning about Better Living, or if you're not a member of ours, if you wouldn't mind just sending me a message with your email, we'd love to add you to our email list so you can have updates on the new webinars that will be coming up. So if you can just take a second to put your email in the chat, and then that way we can stay in contact with you. Thank you, Judy, for that question. If you're done, if you don't mind just turning your camera on mute, your microphone on mute again.
Of
And
course.
if there's anybody else that has a question, now would be a perfect time to come off of mute and ask that. Yep, Alan?
Alan?
Yeah, it's arthritis and bone health. Maybe you can walk us through arthritis and bone health in terms of one's body? Because you talk about potentially getting one's bones stronger, but
Mhm.
if you're confronted with arthritis, that would be contradictory to that. How do you? I guess you're doing the same set of exercises to
Mhm.
overcome the arthritis, but you can't cure the arthritis that's already there. Probably just slow the progression.
So, so when it comes to arthritis, so this would be, first of all, if you do have like osteoporosis and arthritis, like it's very good to let your trainer know so we can kind of program your workout according to, what's going on with you. But with arthritis, we'll kind of we follow almost like the same protocol. But what we do is we start you off on more of a what we call the very first progression of things. And then as you feel or as you're able, we progress you up. A good example would be like, as I mentioned to Judy, like, oh, we will start on the ground and do like the straight leg lifts. That's kind of where we'll start to make sure that you are able to do that. If that's something that you can do, we'll progress you to go into like your elbows, then to your hands. And if that's something that you're continuously able to do that, then we'll progress you to doing things like squats. And then, so on and so forth. Then we'll go take you into more like the leg press machine. So we follow almost the same protocol, but we do oftentimes ask that, hey, let us know how we feel. In my session, I always ask, how are you feeling? Is anything bothering you? So that we can progress you or regress you based on how you're feeling. We don't want there's already information going on which is creating the pain. We don't want to do an exercise or keep doing something that is going to essentially exacerbate or make that situation worse. So there's more of a progression steps that we go through. We always like to start off at the very beginning of the progression and then kind of build your way up. And then during that progress, during the progression, we're asked, okay, is this good for us to do? Is this not good for us to do? Do we need to regress and things like that? Does that kind of answer your question? It's more of a progression, regression kind of strategy that we use.
Well, my question really is: can you reverse the arthritis uh, through exercise, or is it just a matter of slowing the arthritis? Is it just a matter of slowing it down, the progression?
Yeah, it's really just a matter of slowing it
Okay,
down. Yeah.
got it.
And that's the reason why we kind of use the same protocol. Like, that it might not be something that we can completely cure. We can make it better, right? Not saying that it's always going to be bad. We can make it better through exercise. And diet. We can kind of reduce some of the inflammation. We may not be able to say, "Oh man, I no longer have arthritis," but we can definitely slow down the progress. And then even with that progress, I kind of progress you in those exercises without again like hurting you in the process.
Thanks.
Yeah,
And I
no
just want
problem.
to add, thank you so much, Kwesi, is that one of the things that, we see as trainers in our center all the time is that, arthritis is such a broad, diagnosis. And we're not medical, like we're not doctors or anything like that. But we do see people that may come up with osteoarthritis, with rheumatoid arthritis, with different things like this. But what helps us, at least it has helped me, is to understand that, you know, osteoarthritis is just one branch of this, big concept of arthritis. And a lot of times, this is why I agree with what you said, is a lot of times in treating that bone remodeling process, we can, and you've also mentioned collagen and all of these different things. A lot of times these exercises do overlap. Arthritis is obviously inflammation to the joints. Arthritis is obviously that inflammation to the bone. You know, so just understanding how we can kind of like, yes, we have this big concept of arthritis that we're dealing with, but sometimes in treating, the bone health, we can also sometimes also improve or impact that larger concept as well. So thank you for answering that again. We have time for one more question. If there's just one more question from the floor, we have time. And if there is not, it is okay. I'll give us 10 more seconds if anybody is thinking if they want to summon the confidence to come and ask a question. Somebody has to try to stump Kwesi. Ask him a question he does not know the answer to. Ask him, is Nigerian food better than Ghanaian food? You can ask him that too.
That's an easy answer. Nigerian
Okay.
food does not promote bone health. Ghanaian food does.
Is it true that Nigerian food cures osteoporosis? You could it doesn't. Okay. All right. Well, we thank you for taking time out, Kwesi. We also want to thank everybody who has taken time off of their busy lives. We really want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide you the most, value, not only in center, out of center. So we're going to continue to see, what questions do we think is going to be helpful if we address it on this platform. I want to just wrap us up by saying a couple things. One is that you can expect our next webinar to be next month around the same time. So just keep an eye out for that. As always, in ensuring that our content is relevant, you'll probably be seeing surveys going out. We want to know what topics are you guys most interested in. And in keeping with that, look out for emails on ActiveCampaign. Look out for, those polls that are going to ask you that. And in addition to that, sometime this week, everybody on this webinar will be getting a survey just because we want to know, how did you feel about this webinar? Do you think it met your needs? Do you think it was pretty terrible? Do you think there was things we can improve on? Do you think it was excellent? We want to know everything so that way we can kind of continue to refine it and make it best suited for you all. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very good.
Thank you. Anything you want to say to us, Kwesi, before I let everyone go?
Yeah, so just keep being strong and keep better living going and keep living better, I guess.
Thank
But
you.
thank you all for coming, and thank you all for, again, taking the time to come out and listening to us. I hope you get some good information. And as Bonji said, if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to ask me, ask Kim. We can send us an email, and then we'll do our best to get back to you.
Mary put one in the chat wanting to know if it was available for latecomers.
Oh,
If it was
great
recorded.
question, Mary. I just answered, and the answer is yes. So you'll be having access to this. And Mary, if you don't mind just sharing with me maybe your email so I know exactly where to email the recording to, that'd be great. So, guys, thank you so much. Happy evening. Have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to continue to making you all stronger. Take care.